Right, everyone, it is time for a Friday Reads. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you my Friday Reads video. In my Friday Reads video, I share the books that I finished, the books that I started, and the books that I am carrying over week to week, and I do have a little bit of everything. Maybe? I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's funny, I almost wasn't going to film a video today because it's been quite a week, and I'm feeling a little bit, just a little on edge, you know. I think we've hit the 6-month mark on the pandemic, and I'm feeling it. And so, but I'd also decided that it's a Friday Reads video. It's not an announcement video. It's not a book review or anything like that. It's not even a TBR. It's just a Friday Reads, and I consider Friday Reads are sort of just like sit down and chat kind of videos. So I hope it's okay if I'm a little off my game or a little grumpy or a little more snide. I am not really snide, so if I'm snide at all, I don't know. Anyway, so I hope that's okay. I thought it would be better just to do it and just see what happens, because I did read some stuff, and we are now in the 3rd week of the Halloween Creature Feature Reading Extravaganza, hosted by John of Books of Blood and Jason from Jason's Weird Reads, and I did finish a couple of things for that, so I wanted to share that, and then of course other books that I have finished and am reading and all of those things. So let's talk about books. So first up, I did finally finish Haunted Toronto by John Robert Colombo. This is a non-fiction collection of works of different encounters, ghost stories, haunted locations, paranormal happenings or curiosities, or all of those kinds of things. I have talked about this in other videos because it's taken me all month to read it so far. Like, it took me 3 weeks to finish, which actually, you know, for me with a collection, that's pretty normal. I find that if I'm reading a collection, if I read more than 5 entries, I just sort of start to lose information, or it starts to blend or blur. So I think it's okay that I took my time with this. The collection is sectioned out into north, south, east, west, and then central, with central being central east and central west, with Yonge Street as the dividing line. There were lots of really interesting stories in this one. I've talked about some of them before, the Metrosaurus, and there's also the Euclid Street seances. That one was pretty cool. And in the past week, some of the ones that I read, one of my favorite ones was the Mississauga Blob, which is just like really fascinating. It was I hope people don't mind me sharing. It was something fiery fell from the sky, and I think it landed on a picnic table. A father and daughter were there. They doused it with water to have it not be on fire, but then it was not able to be determined what it was or where it came from, and that is pretty wild. I think it was sort of inferred that it was likely a meteorite, I think, but like, who knows? Like, so, and that was kind of wild, and that's one of the interesting things about reading about this kind of stuff, I find, is, although when you read it, it doesn't feel great, because often it is unresolved. Like, sometimes, often, if it's a haunted house type situation, people leave, right? And that's sort of the end of the story. Sometimes the building is worn down, or torn down. Sometimes there's no information past the story, the information given by the people who submitted it. But the Mississauga Blob one, that one kind of freaked me out because it was unresolved. Now, it was also from the 70s, and I think it's interesting because this is, like, I think interest in the supernatural and paranormal and the unknown sort of has waves of interest, right? Like, we got a peek of it, I'm sure, during the X-Files, and then it sort of settles down. And I think right now we're in a time, because so much can be documented by, you know, photos or video, I think we're oddly or not oddly, I don't know, we're more skeptical, especially because you expect to see visual proof, but then also videos and photographs can be changed. So I think we're a little bit more skeptical. I don't know. What do you think? Are we more skeptical in this age of, you know, technology? But anyway, I didn't even super mean to go there. But yeah, so the Mississauga Blob, like, I wonder if we looked at it now, would we be able to determine what it was, especially with, like, you know, just more eyes in the sky kind of idea, yeah, like, I don't know. Anyway, so that one was really cool. There was also, I really like the Phantom Ship of Etobicoke. That was really good. There was another really scary haunting. I can't remember which one it was, but for me, some of the haunted houses or haunted locations are definitely feel the scariest. And there was also a televised seance on CTV or CFTO, and that was fascinating, and apparently is like one of the most, or the most famous televised seance, or at least up till the publication of this book, which was in the mid-90s. So yeah, so I really enjoyed it. One of the things about it though is for me, the pacing's not, I don't know if that's the right word, because each of the different entries has a bit of a different rhythm, because some of them are submissions, so they're written by people who submitted a letter, and some of them are written from an encounter being relayed to the author, or taken from multiple sources. They all have a bit of a different, you know, tone to them, not tone, but there's just a bit of a different rhythm to them. So it took me a while to get a rhythm with that, and I think by the time I got the rhythm with that, I was like in like the last section, so that was a bit strange. And I think that's just because I'm not used to reading collections like this, because it just had variable, like all of them were, you know, could be 1 page, could be 8 pages, could be a really long letter written by someone in a really detailed style, or it could be a really brief, like, letter or whatever. So yeah, but I ended up really enjoying it, so I'm glad that I read it. The author has also written one on Ghost Stories of Ontario, as well as one on Canada, but often those books are the reference for this one, so I don't know how much crossover there is. And I also was like, is that strange to reference one of your own works in another work? Or maybe it's not strange, I am not sure, but it was really interesting, and I'm really glad that I read it. Also, a little more lighthearted, I read A Night in Terror Tower by R.L. Stine. This is a Goosebumps book. It was just the next in the series. I'm reading my way through the series. And this one, it was set in London, so that's unusual for the series, and follows a girl and her younger brother. As often is the case, it's often a sibling group or set, and they go on a tour of a haunted tower, and things go awry. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I had a little trouble following the story on this one, because it is strange. Like, it's not, like, things happen that are unusual and unexplained, at least in particular moments, which isn't bad, like, that, you know, is intrigue, right? But I was kind of like, even when it was explained, it was like, but does that explain this, or did I misunderstand that? So that was a little embarrassing on my part, but it was a fun one. I did also read this for the Halloween Creature Feature Reading Extravaganza, but I'm not sure which prompt it would fit in, but I think it just counts, hopefully, for the spirit of it. Spirit of it. And Haunted Toronto I read for the Dead Undead category, and also in the Dead Undead category, I am also reading Ajin, Volume 5. This is a manga series following these Ajin demi-humans, which are like the human, it's sort of, I still have a hard time understanding it. The human is unkillable, so they're immortal, so I don't know if that makes them dead or undead, but then there's also this sort of like specter thing that is like connected to them somehow, and that kind of feels like maybe it's an undead thing? I'm not sure. It's really creepy. It's quite violent, especially because the Ajin can't be killed, so a lot of violence is done to them, which can be a little unsettling. That being said, I am enjoying the series. I read the 1 through 4 earlier this year, and I'm just gonna continue on, and it's creepy, and so that feels fun to do. I also switched out my vampire novel by a female author because I recognized I was not going to finish My Soul to Take by Tananarive. So I actually decided to pick up The Silver Kiss by Annette Curtis Klause. and this is a YA paranormal vampire. I think it's a romance. Let's look at some of the covers and how different they are. So this is one cover for it, obviously, and then this is the edition I'm reading, which very much looks like it's a romance. You have the two leaves and the shape of a heart, and obviously it looks like a couple. And then this looks a lot more menacing, paranormal romance. Wouldn't even probably know that it's YA, because this actually kind of looks like stubble. It's not, it's just trees, but, you know, kind of looks like it. Anyway, but this is the edition that I am reading, and it comes with 2 extra stories. Though I've read the first story, and it was actually quite good. I enjoyed it. It was about a vampire and a cat, and it was quite touching. But the main story is about a girl whose mother is sick. She's a teenager. She's in high school. Her mother is sick, and she has a best friend who's moving away, and she's really sad just generally, and just feeling rather disconnected from things and having inner turmoil over life. And then there's a vampire who is who's a guy, and they randomly come across each other in a park, sort of 2 nights in a row, and it hasn't progressed much further than that. And I picked this one up because it is on my oldest on my Goodreads TBR list. I added it back in 2010 when I started, when I joined Goodreads, and the author also wrote Blood and Chocolate, which is a werewolf book that was made into the film Blood and Chocolate with Hugh Dancy, which I enjoyed. I think it's a bit underrated. I wonder now, seeing this novel, I wonder if the film reads a bit more romancy than most horror fans like, and if that's maybe what happened there. And it's a very standard, now that I think about it, it's a very standard shifter plot, you know, where there's like sort of like one woman, and she's sort of like wanting, not one, I don't know, there's not many women, so they want the women shifters to be like, you know, make babies, kind of, basically, and she's not sort of super keen on like having to marry whoever someone else says she's supposed to marry, if I remember correctly. I think that's sort of the premise of it. But there's also this sort of story of Hugh Dancy's character is not involved in this, and he sort of, it gets a sense that there are werewolves. So anyway, now I really want to go watch Blood and Chocolate, but we are talking about Silver Kiss, so let's get back to Silver Kiss. So yeah, so this one is interesting. It's a bit, the vampire character is actually, he's rather menacing in a lot of ways. He does some things that are a bit questionable. not problematic, yeah, but like he does some stuff that I'm like, I don't know about that, and I wonder if I had read it back in 2010, if I wouldn't have picked up on that or wouldn't have cared about that. But now, 10 years later, I'm kind of like, not sure about that, both in a violence standpoint. He's not super predatory, even though he obviously is a predator. He can be a predator as a vampire, but some other stuff too, like marking his territory. I'm like, I don't know if I need to read that. So, is it more of a werewolf thing? Anyway, I don't know. No, not really. It's more of a dog thing. Anyway, let's just leave it at that. Anyway, so I swapped this one out. This one's only 120 or so pages, so I definitely feel like I can finish it by the end of the month, and then I will eventually get back to and finish My Soul to Take. And yeah, but this one fits the prompt, and I want to get all the challenges. So what else am I going to share? Okay, so completely different tone. Young romance. So this I finished this week. It's the best of Simon and Kirby's romance comics, young romance. So I read this on Hoopla. It is a collection of comics. I had not even heard of these. I remember some romance comics, but not from this far back. These are from like the 40s and the 50s, and they were, it's interesting because there's definitely a divide, because at some point this comics code went in, and so there were certain parameters that they had to follow, or certain rules that they couldn't break. So before that went in, they were a bit more risque, not risque, but like they were a bit more, they felt, to be honest, I felt like they didn't feel super romancy. They felt more like cautionary tales. And then afterwards, they sort of had like a sort of quick, everything comes together, we're all happy, you know, happily ever after, ends in marriage and babies, like very quick, where before that was not the case in terms of the resolve. So they don't really feel like romance in terms of how we determine romance now with a happily ever after or happy for now. At least most, like some of them, half of them didn't feel that way. They felt much more like cautionary tales. And they had some darker themes to them. There was a revenge one. There was a like a romance with the enemy set in World War II Germany, like between a German woman and an American man. And I'm like, that didn't, like, it was like very like, and I think that one was translated as well, so it was really interesting to see, but it wasn't romance in terms of what I was expecting, even though they did have some themes. There were a fair amount of sort of like love triangles or falling in love with the boss, like those kinds of tropes and stuff we see a lot, but it was a very different take on it. But I really appreciated like the introduction, the explanation of the comics code, and then the editor at the end talks about bringing the project together, what sort of was the inspiration, and also the restoration of the comics with examples, and I really enjoyed seeing that as well. And because it's amazing the difference between the restoration, the before and afters. And it took me a long time to read. It was 200 pages or so. There was about 23 comics, so they weren't a lot of pages each, but there was lots of text, and they often had like 6 panels with lots of text, and like it was just really curious. I posted a lot of the covers on Instagram because I couldn't believe some of them. It was just wild. So I read this on Hoopla here, like in Toronto, like where we get graphic novels, music, and TV, and we get some movies. So we don't get audiobooks here, but graphic novels, and we're still at 8 credits, so remember to use your credits before the end of the month if you haven't yet. I enjoyed this, but it was not what I expected, and it took me way longer to read. I actually had to leave it open because it started to expire. Like I said, it was going to expire in 2 hours, but I left it open, and I left it open longer than 2 hours to finish it, so that's a little sneaky tip there. If you need to finish something, just don't close it on your tablet. Just don't close it, and you can still finish it off. So I would have used another credit to finish it, but I'd rather, you know, use it for something else. What else did I read? I also am continuing on the Nicole and Jen's reading of the Julianne Lindsay books. So this week we read Apple Cider Slang, the first in the Cider Shop Mysteries. This is a cozy mystery series following a woman who works on her grandmother's... She wants to add a cider shop to her grandmother's orchard. Her grandmother, who is Granny Smythe. There's lots of punny goodness. It was good. I really enjoyed it. The live show with this was earlier this week on Wednesday night, and we are continuing on the series with Pulp Friction, which is the second book. There's also 2 ginger cats, so like that's a win. Orange tabbies, they hold my heart. Oh, my sister Jamie had an orange tabby. I just loved her so very much. And didn't mean to go there. So yeah, so in the live show for this will be next week, Wednesday. I'll put the link in the description box below if you would like to join in. And that's mostly what I read. Yeah, so I think I'll leave it there because I've talked a lot. I feel like I've started too many things. I'm very much in the, let's just start everything. Let's ignore the fact I'm at 33 books in the middle of my currently reading. Yeah, I'm just ignoring that. Obviously not, because I keep on thinking about it. I'm trying to ignore that. I want to finish a bunch of stuff. The Ajin, I will finish that, no problem. Pulp Friction, I will finish that within the week. I also started another Ibsen play, The Pretenders, which is set in the 13th century and follows a family, someone becomes king and it's not who they expect, so it's going to be political and power dynamics and stuff like that. Big cast of characters here. Oh yeah, the cast of characters is like, it took me, this is why I haven't started it yet. It took me forever to write this out. Harkonsen is elected king. So we shall see. He was not apparently whom people thought would be king, so tensions are starting to arise. But yeah, so I find that really helpful though, even though it's kind of spoilery sometimes, you know, having the dynamics and the relationships for the characters, but especially with this one because it's Norwegian, so the names aren't necessarily familiar. Sigrid, oh, well, so that's not Inga, that's Nicholas. Okay, well, I'm just not being truthful there. Gutherson, Sigrid, Jagerterd, Bradert, Gregorsinen, Flidra, it's probably Ingerbor, Dogfin, Ivar. Ivar's okay. I can deal with Ivar. Marguerite I can deal with, and Vegar. So that's why I do the character sheet. That's why I do the character sheet. So I'll probably finish that within this week. I'm still trying to do this one sort of like finish something a day. That's why I started Ajin. I'm about 4 behind. But I am hoping to finish a bunch of stuff this week, as I hope to every week. Anyway, there we go. That is what I have been reading. Let me know what you have been reading. Are you feeling grumpy? I'm feeling grumpy, but I still decide to do this video, so I hope that's okay. Yeah, so that's it. Let me know what you're reading this week or weekend, and I will be back soon with another video. Thank you so much for watching.